Hey there. Thank you for being with me today. I really appreciate it. Today we are talking about research and how iridology has changed over the years. What that really boils down to is comparing North American or Jensenian iridology to a more holistic perspective on iridology, which is the constitutional perspective. As we're getting ready to do this, I would love it if you would say hi. And I'm so happy that some of you have been saying hello in the chat box. I like these to be very interactive. So if you are with me live on this webinar and you're not watching a replay, please interact with me in the chat box. Say hello, let me know where you're from, and we will dive in. And as you've got questions, launch those out through the chat box, and I will ask for engagement, and we will have hopefully a very good time working together today. I would like to take just a moment to introduce myself. Some of you have been with me before. Some of you I think are quite new to me. My name is Judith Cobb. I am a certified level 3 instructor through IPA. And you'll see these badges say 2022 to 2024. IPA has us update our credentials every 2 years. And so when you see this, don't go thinking I've only been an iridologist for 2 years. I've only been an instructor for 2 years. I've actually been an iridologist for over 4 decades. And I've been a certified level 3 iridologist with IPA since they started level 3, which was 2021. Actually, I did the training in 2021 and certified in 2022. And so, but I've been a certified instructor with IPA again for decades. So I've been around the block a time or two. I've seen a lot of research, a lot of developments, and I'm excited to have you with me today as we look at what these are. I am also a natural nutrition clinical practitioner affiliated with 2 different nutrition organizations here in Canada, and a master herbalist affiliated with the Alberta Herbalist Association. And again, I've been working with nutrition and herbs and as a health coach for over 4 decades now. And so I'm pretty excited to be sharing this information with you, to share with you the evolution that I have seen happen in iridology because of the ongoing research. Are you excited to learn about that evolution? If you are, give me an excited in the chat box. Let me know. Oh, Chana's having a party there. She's so excited. Love that. She's so good with the emojis. Yeah, right on. Right on. I've got some graduates from my dynamic iridology program with us today and some current students, and just love to see you here. Thank you for making time to be with us too. Lots of people excited for this information. So good, so good. Wonderful. So, you know, when I first started out, I started where most of you probably started, and that is with Jensen-style iridology. Does this iris chart look familiar to any of you? If it does, give me chart in the comments box. If this blue and white iridology chart from Bernard Jensen looks familiar, maybe you've got one. Yeah, you've seen this, right? Many of you have. Fantastic. Love it. Thank you for that. And you've probably seen that his daughter-in-law, Ellen Tart Jensen, has updated it a little bit, right? And she made it more colorful. She added information to it because of the research that's been going on. So when we look at Bernard's chart, he's got heart in 1 place. Ellen has it in 4 places. Right? Because the heart is not just on the left-hand side of the body. It actually is basically almost midline, slightly off-centered, but not by much. Bernard also has pancreas. Oh, I can't see it on this tiny map. In a couple of places, maybe just 1. But with research, we know that pancreas now is in 4 places in each eye. All right, so that's huge. That's huge, right? My first, this is another physical chart, another one sort of playing off of Bernard's work. And again, breaking it down into parts and showing not quite all the detail that we've got in Ellen's most recent chart. This is the chart designed by Harry Wolff. He was the one who brought constitutional iridology to Canada, or not to Canada, to North America. And you will see that couple of differences. He's got some empty spaces on his. He doesn't have pancreas in 4 places in each eye. He doesn't have heart in 4 places. He's got heart in 2 places. So that's an improvement over Jensen, or development over Jensen. So a little bit different because of research, right? Because of research. When I first learned iridology, I learned Jensen. And then as I became unhappy with Jensen, I went constitutional. And at first I fell in love with this chart. And then I realized that Harry was taking things a little further. When you look at Bernard's chart and you look at how narrow some of these areas are, and Ellen has even taken the brain area and subdivided it even further. What I feel this means is, with all these little tiny little areas, sometimes of organs that are not metabolically important, it means that if you aren't completely and perfectly level with your imaging, maybe you're off by 2 degrees, which is not very much out of 360 degrees, it can mean that a marking gets misinterpreted, right? And so as we came to Harry's chart, and he has in here, in one of these areas, not just kidney, but he's got an area for the renal pelvis. Do you know where the renal pelvis is? It's not the same as your pelvis, your bony structure pelvis. Do you know where the renal pelvis is? Or what it is? If you do, give me renal in the chat box. Do you know what the renal pelvis is? Okay, some of you do. So it is actually just a very specialized part of the kidney. Now, here's the challenge I had with that. With as much as I love Harry and his work, I don't have a diet or a herb or an emotional freedom technique tapping or an essential oil that works just on the renal pelvis. And so it doesn't necessarily give me any advantage to know renal pelvis. Do you agree with me that if we subdivide the body into such minute parts, that it's not necessarily an advantage, that we really want to be looking at the body holistically? Yeah, look at it as a whole. How do things work together, right? Not how does one little tiny piece work, because we can't work with one little tiny piece, right? Yeah, okay, so that was when I studied with Bill Cardona, and he developed a chart very similar to this one, a map similar to this one. And you'll notice that we've left out all of the areas that are not metabolically active. The arm and the hand are typically not metabolically active. The leg and the foot are not typically metabolically active. So we've got on the dynamic iridology map the organs. We still have, if you're familiar with the Jensen map, you know he has the 7 zones. Oops, where's my mouse? Here we go. We've got the 7 zones. We still have those 7 zones because they are still important. And other than that, we have organs that are metabolically active. And with this dynamic iridology map that I developed, based on Bill Cardona's chart and with his permission, because it needed updating, we have the pancreas in 4 places in each eye. We have the heart in 2 places in each eye. So we've got the liver in 3 places, because the liver is not just on the right side of the body. It spans across onto the left side, correct? And so this is more anatomically correct and simpler. How many of you feel like this chart, this map might be a simpler way to go? Do you? If you think it's a simpler way to go, give me simple. Yeah? Fantastic. Absolutely. What this does is it clears the clutter, and it allows us then to see clearly where we've got markings, and to correlate those markings one to another as we understand anatomy and physiology, and then to correlate that back to the symptoms the client has. So for example, if this client has a current lung symptom, they might have genetic or inherent markings in the lung area, but the lungs might also be impacted by the lymphatic system. They might be impacted by the overall constitution, particularly if we've got an over acid constitution or a uric acid constitution. Lungs can be impacted by kidneys. because if the kidneys aren't capable of clearing the acid has to come out somewhere, and the lungs are one of those areas, those channels for getting rid of excess acid. Does that make sense? If it does, makes sense in the comments. So what we're doing is, by simplifying the chart at the map and clearing the clutter, we can more easily make those connections based on anatomy and physiology, of connecting body organs and connecting physiology and physiological reactions that have an impact, a domino impact on other areas, right? So that's what we want to do. So this is a very holistic way of approaching iridology, and that is what constitutional iridology allows us to do. It allows us to take that step back, look at the person as a whole, look at the eyes for markings that give us information about the particular situation, as opposed to doing what I was taught to do as a Jensenian iridologist, and what you probably were taught to do, which is look for every single little marking. How many of you were taught in an iris analysis, to make notes about or to pay attention to every marking you see? Every individual tophus, every individual fiber that was going in the wrong direction, every little dot of pigment you saw. Yeah, you were. And how overwhelming is that? Jack is one of my course grads. She said I had the best teacher. Thanks for that, Jack. And Amy says, kind of, but at a point, I don't want to overwhelm the person. Yeah, exactly. And Gerald is saying he learned to look at every mark as well. You're not only overwhelming the person with that, but you're overwhelming yourself. How do you sort through where to start? When you've got all of these little bits of information, how do you sort through where to start? How do you create a program that your client can actually stick with and have progress with? Because you've got all of these focal points, and Gerald is saying, good question. Yeah, it's nearly impossible. I can tell you, from practicing that style of iridology for just about a full decade, it didn't work in my clinic. And maybe it doesn't work with the way you work either. Let's look at some eyes, and let's look at how they would compare doing a North American style or an old style iris assessment versus a constitutional style. You want to do that with me? If you do, give me eyes in the comments box. Let me know you want to look at some eyes. There's Chana quick with the emojis. Love that. And Adia is saying eyes, lots of eyes. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much for playing with me in the chat box. I appreciate that. So those of you who are Jensenian iridologists, I want to know, what do you see here? I want you to start typing in that list of markings of things that you see here, things that you think, things that you were taught to make notes of. Okay. And as you're doing that, I'm going to tell you what I saw as a Jensenian. I saw a congested lymphatic system. And I taught my clients that if they didn't get this moving, there was going to be huge immune problems, that they probably needed to cut out dairy, white flour, white sugar. They needed to be physically active. But mostly I was concerned that their immune system seemed to be on the verge of total congestion and collapse. I told them that they had blue eyes. That's no big surprise. And then I talked about things like each of these little markings that is stray, that it's crossing over some other area, and how that meant each of those areas was in trouble, and that if we did the right kind of diet and the right kind of supplements, we could move those fibers back to where they belonged, that we could literally do that. So this is a right iris. Do you all know this is a right iris? Right? And so as I'm looking at a map, I would have said, yeah, that liver is in trouble. And if this is a female, which it might be, the ovary could be in trouble. We come down into the kidneys, they're in trouble. We've got issues coming into the uterus, vagina area. We've got issues in the liver area. Oh, we've got all this dark here. That's into the thyroid and the throat area and into the parathyroid. Oh my goodness, this person is a train wreck. And we've got shading in the lung area. Do you have any lung problems? Because, you know, all of this white says that you're prone to having way too much mucus, and that's really going to tank your lungs. And then we've got this bit of clouding up at the edge. You know, you're blocking your arteries. We need to deal with that too. And that wasn't even looking at the sclera because I didn't know sclerology at that point in time. China's saying, oh, so encouraging for the person. Yeah, yeah. And we would see this and we would talk about how their intestinal tract was a mess and it was too tight. And we needed to fix that, and we could move that out as well. We could reposition that, and that would tell us that the intestinal tract was improving. And, you know, anything that's dark in here is probably an indicator that you're trying to set up a cancer, right? Any of that sound familiar? If it does, say familiar in the chat box. Any of that sounds familiar? How many Jensen iridologists are not constitutional? I will tell you, Jacqueline, a lot of them are moving. A lot of them are switching over. Some of them are very firmly entrenched in Jensen. And they are the people that I get hate messages from, messages telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm a danger to the world. I shouldn't be an iridologist. It's pretty funny, actually. I've learned to just laugh at it and think, oh my goodness, mind closed tight like a steel trap. That works for you. You do you, right? And so a lot of you are saying that sounded pretty familiar. But as a constitutional iridologist, I am going to take a step back. And I'm first going to ask, what is the health concern you would like my help with now? Always start with what the client wants help with. This client may not care about their liver. They probably don't even know what their liver does, right? That's my job to educate them. Maybe their concern is they've got some gut issues. And maybe for them, it is that they've got a lot of intestinal pain, right? So I'm going to look at their eye. I'm actually not going to pay attention to a lot of stuff out here, except the fact that this white tells me they tend to be over acid. I don't know if they are over acid or not until I speak with them. Genetically, they want to be over acid. So I'm going to ask them things like, what is your diet like? What do you do for physical activity every day? How much rest do you get in a day? How much water do you drink in a day? I want to learn everything I can about things that would impact that bowel. I want to know how many bowel movements do they have in a day? Have they ever checked their bowel transit time to know if it is sluggish or if it's overactive? I want to know, when I see this, I also typically think that it tracks back to the stomach and to digestion. And so I want to know about their digestive processes. I also want to know about stress levels because stress affects, yeah, Chan is asking, how do they handle their emotions? Absolutely. I want to ask about stress because stress impacts everything. And if this is a person, as I suspect it is, who internalizes their stress, who sucks it all in, holds it in good and tight, tamps it down to make room for more, that's going to contract everything. So they are inherently prone to having a constricted bowel, particularly transverse. Well, the whole GI tract is constricted. But when they're stressed, does that constrict it more? And will that lead to more risk of bowel pain and, you know, constipation and whatever? Jacqueline says negativity can increase acidity. It absolutely can. Gerald, you hit the nail right on the head by saying intake process. I use iridology as the intake process, right? And so as I'm working with this client now, he may be already figured out that dairy constipates him, and he might not be doing dairy. He may have figured out that stress does go to his gut, but or she, we said it was a she, didn't we? And so we may have to talk to her about stress. What are the stressors in your life? What can you do about them? And some stressors you can actually take action on. Some of them you can't. Some of them are happening around you and you just have to swim through the mud, right? And so I can offer different tools that can help her handle her stress. I can um, I can offer some digestive support. I can offer some dietary recommendations. Notice I haven't even talked about lymph because it's not what's important to my client right now. Now, in our conversation, it might come out that she's getting sick a lot, that she's got, she's getting a cold like every 6 weeks, whether she needs one or not. Well, that's an effect of stress. I'm not necessarily going to work on the lymphatic system. Inherently, it wants to be congested. I'm still going to work on digestion and on basic lifestyle, right? And digestion and stress kinds of things. So it might be as simple as, I'm going to make up a diet. She drinks 3 cups of coffee a day and she's got a pretty good diet otherwise, but breakfast is usually skipped. So I'm probably going to suggest that she get rid of the coffee because that's going to help her digestion at the stomach level. It's also going to reduce her acid levels. Probably going to suggest she replace the coffee with water. Going to suggest that she increases her protein some and that she takes something to help her digest that protein well, because her stomach looks like it might not handle protein as well as we'd like. And I'm also going to suggest doing 20 to 30 minutes of something physical every day. Could she go for a walk? Could she find some good little yoga YouTubes? Is there something she can do for 20 to 30 minutes a day physically to move her lymph, to help her, give her some headspace away from her problems, sort of a mini vacation, to get her body moving, because that helps to work stress out of the system. And that's where I start. I don't go into every single little marking because we don't need to with constitutional. I don't need to tear her diet apart bit by bit because she's already stressed. Doing a full 180 change on her diet is going to be more stressful. But could she get rid of the coffee and replace it with water? She can replace it with hot water if she wants. That's an easy substitution. A little extra protein, give her some solid ideas. Do you think you could handle 2 eggs at breakfast time and give her some help digesting it? Do you think you could increase your protein by a little bit at lunchtime and a little bit at supper? Little bit, 20%. Easy to do, right? Do you think you could figure out a way to put in 20 to 30 minutes of time just for you to focus on body movement? You don't have 30 minutes? Could you do 10 minutes? Could you do 10 minutes? Like, could you get off the bus 5 blocks earlier and walk 10 minutes into work? Could you spend 10 minutes at lunchtime at work if you work in an office building going up and down the stairs? Could you get on the bus 5 blocks further away to come home from work and get a 10-minute walk there and build 30 minutes of activity in without ever having to go to a gym, turn on a video, or put on a spandex workout outfit, right? So just really simple things. And I've not added to her stress. I've given her actionable things that are going to have a huge impact on that gut pain. We're going to get that gut moving because walking is one of the best massage activities for the intestinal tract to get it moving and reduce pain. We've helped her with digestion, which can take down inflammation. There's so many simple things. That is appointment number 1 here. Do you think she could do those things? Maybe. Maybe. Do you think she could do them 80% of the time? Because if she can, that's a massive improvement, right? Does this sound like a gentle way to do iridology? Does it sound like it's easier for your client and that it's maybe easier for you too? I no longer write detailed iridology reports the way I used to as a Jensenian. Adia, I hope I'm saying your name right, Adia, says baby steps can be the most helpful. They can. They absolutely can. I want my clients to be massively successful in baby steps. I want them to be able to come back to me, to want to come back to me and say, yes, I did those things, and this is what I'm seeing. Adia, thank you so much. Thank you, Adia. Appreciate that. And you get the win, right? If your client has not been able to do what you recommended and they've not had success, are they going to come back and say, I failed? Not likely. No one wants to admit they couldn't do something. But if we can give them homework that they can do and check in with them, I usually send an email out 2 weeks after their appointment. And we've always booked their follow-up for 4 weeks after their first appointment. And I always send that email. So I see them, give them the base program that we're starting with, check in by email 2 weeks later, and I ask for a reply. I want a progress report. I want to know how they're doing. And if they're having some challenges, I want to tweak that gently in the email and say, hey, let's do a quick little revamp here. Let's just push it this way or pull it that way. Does that sound like it would work better for you? And the answer is almost always yes. Or if they said, this is going so well, you wouldn't believe the improvement I'm feeling, then I can give them a round of applause and say, keep going. You're doing a great job. I'm excited to see you in 2 weeks for us to continue the process. And they respond with, I'm excited too. So this is so good. Adia says, people do not want to be a part of their care. People do want to be a part of their care, but not so much that they're overwhelmed. This is absolute truth, Adia. I love the way you've stated that. Now, for those of you who have the Jensenian background, take a look at this eye. And would you be tempted with the Jensenian training to say, you are toxic, your eyes should be blue? If we do enough cleansing, we will be able to make these eyes blue. Does that sound at all familiar to you? That's certainly what I was taught. Amy's saying, haha, yes. Yeah, yeah. Gerald is saying no. Good for you, Gerald. Good for you. I was taught that these were supposed to be blue eyes, that we needed to cleanse, and we would change the eye color. Now, I would have also said, with all of these rings going around, oh my goodness, what is your stress level like? I think you're headed for a nervous breakdown. Either that or you've just come out of one. I would have said, you've got parasites. We really need to get rid of those parasites. And you've got skin problems. Yep, your skin is not happy, right? Jack is saying, isn't brown the most prevalent color? Do they expect everyone to cleanse? So Jack, good question. Not so much that all brown eyes should cleanse, but look at all the gold areas in here. The gold areas are what told me as a Jensenian that this wasn't a brown eye, that this person was full of toxins. This because it's not a fairly uniform brown. And there's plenty of cleanse happy people out there. Absolutely. And Gerald is picking up on the stress as well. So I put a lot of people with this type of eye on a cleanse, multiple cleanses, to try to change their eyes. And Jack is asking a great question. So everyone who is biliary should be blue. According to Jensenian training from 40 years ago, yeah, there's no such thing as a biliary eye. A mixed eye, which is what they would have called this, was a toxic eye, an eye that showed a body that was full of toxins. So I put clients through cleanses and changed their diets, and some of them were able to do it and some of them weren't. And those that were, we didn't see their eye color change at all. Not at all. People who had these rings coming around, some of them would say they were stressed, but not all of them. And as far as this area for skin, yes, some of them said, yes, I've got skin problems. Some of them said no. And so when I learned constitutional, what I learned is that each base color, so whether it's a blue lymphatic, a brown hematogenic, or a biliary, which is what we're looking at here, each base eye color has a set of inherent health traits that are very common to people that have those health colors. So, or those eye colors rather. So this type of eye, this person is more prone to liver insufficiencies. Notice I didn't say liver weaknesses. I didn't say we need to cleanse their liver. They're prone to liver insufficiencies. And because they typically had someone in their bloodline who had a brown eye and someone in their bloodline who had a blue eye, and this person is the offspring of that combination, we will often see some of the blue-eyed predispositions have elevated tendencies towards elevated acids. So with this kind of a person, we again want to know what is their primary health concern. And we want to assess their eyes, do their analysis based on that. So we would likely need to ask liver-oriented questions. This is why it's so important to know anatomy and physiology, because if you don't understand at least 5 or 6 or 7 of the different specific functions of the liver, how can you ask liver-oriented questions? Because the liver does more than detox, right? It does 500 jobs. So you've got to know at least a few of them. I would want to know dietary background. Always, I would want to know lifestyle background. I am also not going to say that they're headed for a nervous breakdown. These rings tell me this person generally chooses to, no, doesn't choose. Physiologically, their body responds to stress in the sympathetic mode. Now, if this person is well nourished and supporting their nervous system, that nervous system is going to function well. They will handle stress. They will deal with it. They'll get through it. It'll be okay. In stressful times, they will burn through more of those nerve nutrients. It doesn't mean they're headed for a nervous breakdown. It means that if they are not well nourished, they really need to be supporting that nervous system through food choices, through lifestyle choices, and through dietary choices. And because this is their constitution, we're not going to get rid of those rings. They're not going anywhere. They're inherently, because that is their constitution, they will always need to be aware of how they support their nervous system, right? These are the clients that when I'm working with them, I will teach them how to support the nervous system, and I'll teach them that when they can see they're headed into a stressful situation, this is how they work with their nutrients. Increase these nutrients, get a little more sleep, make sure you're getting a little bit of physical activity every day. Don't go into the coffee thinking it's going to give you energy, because that's going to deplete your nerve nutrients. So I teach them how to care for their nerve nutrients. Gerald's saying beautiful photos, by the way. Thank you, Gerald. Appreciate that. These eyes are not going to turn blue regardless of what we do. They just won't. They just won't. And that's fine, because these eyes are inherently set. You know, the thing that changes is the sclera. Now, we're not going to talk much about the sclera today, but where the iris is inherent, it shows us what this person inherited. That tells us where they've got strengths and where their body may have challenges, not a guarantee, but may have. We see then in the sclera, we see what's dynamic, where the hot spots are right now. And to a certain extent, what kinds of hot spots we may be looking at, right? And so we really want to be aware of that this is not a guarantee of problems. This person may have figured out years ago that they tend to get stressed out easily. They may have figured out that coffee makes it worse, that alcohol makes it worse, that sleep, getting enough sleep or going for a walk when they're feeling stressed helps to make it better. Those are the kinds of things we need to be teaching our clients. So this, now, how many of you think brown eyes are harder to assess? If you do, put brown eyes in the comments box. if you feel like brown eyes are harder to assess. Yeah, some of you do. You feel like maybe you don't see quite as much detail. So one of the keys here for you is, first off, if you have an iridology camera, you want to make sure you pump up your light. Use a brighter light. Okay, so do a set of photos with just your regular lighting, but then pump up your light. So what that's going to mean typically is you're going to use a longer shutter speed so that you've got more time for light to hit the image before the camera records it. So as we look at that, that will help a lot with what you see, because you'd be surprised that even with very dark eyes, when you add light, you begin to see more of the textures. But remember that with a dark brown eye, you've got so much pigment in here that it is, and that pigment is in the anterior border layer. I'm hoping these terms are familiar to you, but that anterior border layer sits on top of the fiber structure. And if you've got enough pigment there, you're going to mask or hide the fiber structure, which means you're going to see a little bit less. However, there is still a lot to see. When we're working with that hematogenic eye, we know constitutionally these people, their weak links tend to be more along the lines of blood and liver. Anything to do with blood and liver, and we can throw in some circulation in there. Now, that doesn't mean that other eye types can't have those kinds of issues. It just means that we see them more commonly in our brown-eyed clients. So as we look at an eye like this, as a Jensenian, I would have said stressed way beyond what you should be. Look at all these little contraction throws that are hiding in here. I would have said blocking arteries, which may or may not be the case. And then I would have given up, because as a Jensenian, I didn't know how to do an analysis on a hematogenic eye. I didn't know that the predisposition here was blood and liver. Okay. So now that we know that, this particular client was an Asian woman in her early 30s, and she and her husband were trying to have a baby. They'd been trying for 3 years and they'd had no luck whatsoever. And so as I look at her eyes and I'm seeing contraction furrows, I know that we need to be working with her nerves, particularly her B vitamins, because she's having problems getting pregnant. And I know that because she's got brown eyes, I need to make sure she's getting methylated Bs, because people that have any brown in their eyes tend to not methylate well. And we know that women who don't methylate their B vitamins, their folate and their B12 well, tend to have a higher incidence of PCOS and infertility. All right. And so with that, then when I saw that, and when I saw this, which says liver doesn't want to handle carbohydrates very well, which could take us either into blood sugar issues or into cholesterol and lipid issues, I was then able to ask her, because she hadn't told me this yet, oh, have the doctors ever suggested that you might have PCOS, right? Because I'm tracking this back. And she goes, oh yeah, that's what they said. And I said, well, have they ever suggested anything about blood sugars for you? Oh yeah, I've been diagnosed as type 2 diabetic. I'm going, okay, now I've got the information I need to work here, right? And so we were able, the doctors, of course, with T2D and PCOS, just give metformin and Clomid. They give no dietary or lifestyle recommendations. Asian woman, first generation immigrant, kept the white rice from Asia and all the sweet and sticky sauces from Asia and added to that soft drinks and sweet rolls and everything that's bad that North America has to offer. No wonder she was doing this metabolically, right? And so we cleaned up her diet and we got her on the methylated Bs. We did a lot of other herbs with her to make sure that her hormones were behaving properly. It took us, we took her from a 90-day cycle, which is an infertile cycle every time, no matter what you're taking for drugs. And it took us 6 months to get her down to a 35-day cycle. And then it took another year for her to conceive. She had a healthy pregnancy. The doctors kept saying, but you've been diagnosed as type 2 diabetes. You will go gestational diabetic. She did not. She did not. The doctors were amazed that she did not mess up her blood sugars when she was pregnant. And she followed instructions to a T, and her husband was an amazing support. He was the backbone of things that she did. They were such a good team. And so they did well. Now, you would have also, as a Jensenian, talked about this probably as being an arc of senilus, right? Which arc of senility, like what 30-year-old wants to hear arc of senility, right? But this, and that's not what this was about for her. It was totally about her carbs, right? Gerald is asking a brand suggestion. So Gerald, I don't know where you live. And so when I'm looking for methylated Bs prenatally, I use the Prenatal Pro from Designs for Health. If you are a licensed medical professional, so a doctor, an RN, if you're in a state that recognizes naturopaths on the same level as medical doctors, you will be able to get a Designs for Health account. If you don't have that background, you are going to have to dig around. Designs is very specific about who they will let handle their product. And if you've got, Gerald, if you've got a Designs for Health account, use it, right? Their Prenatal Pro and their methylated B, their B Supreme, are amazing. All right, so without constitutional iridology, I would not have known to look at her blood sugars. I would not have known about the methylation issues, right? I would have just, I don't know what I would have done, right? That's the limitations of North American versus constitutional, in my opinion, one of them. So constitutional is a holistic assessment tool, and it requires a conversation with the client. Oh, how much time do we have? I don't want us to run over time. We don't have time to do all of these, which is unfortunate, very unfortunate, because I would like to, I always over prepare way too much information, which is maybe not a good thing, right? This is a good one. In North American iridology, were you taught that every one of these is an area where there's a problem now? Were you taught that? That every one of these, and you call them lesions, we call them lacunae. Were you taught that every lesion is a problem happening now and you need to take care of it? And if you do the right things, you can get rid of this lacuna? If you're a Jensenian, have you been taught that? That's what I was taught. And we worked so darn hard to try to get rid of these. Yeah, problem, closed lacunas. These are things that have been passed down from generation to generation. It suggests there is a potential for an inherent weakness, but not a guarantee. And so we need to, again, have that conversation with the client. We also need to then be connecting the dots. When we have this many lacunae in an eye, each one of them is not going to be important. We want to look at them collectively. What do they teach us collectively? And in this case, they teach us collectively that this person is predisposed to endocrine imbalances. We don't need to assess each one individually unless the client has a specific health concern that dictates that. I would not want to say someone's got problems with their brain or with their kidneys and adrenals or with the rectum, which is sitting in here, or with the bronchioles and the thyroid. And I wouldn't want to give someone that list saying doom, 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 doom. You are doomed. So much gentler to take that step back and say, endocrine imbalances, because number one, that's easier to work with, but number two, it's not as overwhelming. And number three, they may already be doing things to mitigate problems in these areas. And if they are, and we need to focus on one of those, I can simply say, good for you. You've laid an excellent foundation by doing these things that you're doing. And we're just going to add this little bit of a push to that to help it be more effective. We are not going to make these go away. If we get this person on a really good path, before this person becomes a parent, we may be able to help this person pass on better genetic structure to their offspring. And then we need to rinse and repeat with those offspring to get them to be healthier and stronger so they can actually pass on better genetic material to their children. Just as this gives us indications of what has gone on in the past 3 to 4 generations, it will take 3 to 4 generations moving forward to correct issues. So again, these simply suggest inherent potentials. There may not be a problem right now. That's why we need a conversation with our clients. Gerald is saying collectively, good point. Yeah, take that step back and look at the person constitutionally. So important. When we do a holistic iridology assessment, using the iris map is the very last step. We start with what is the base constitution? This would be a lymphatic iris. We know they are prone to being over acid in their tissues. Or is this person over acid? We'll determine that in a conversation. Then we look at their structural subtype. This person is what we would call a connective tissue subtype. That means their body does not generate connective tissue really well. That means that when we recommend activity, we're going to recommend gentle activity. We're not going to go into contact sports here. Yoga, swimming, things where there's less of a risk of an impact damage to tissues. And the fact that this person is connective tissue also does suggest some risks of endocrine imbalance. Then we are going to look at our constitutions by color. We are over acid and uric acid. We're also hydrogenoid here. Those tell me volumes about what this person's inherent risks are. From there, when I hear what this client wants help with, I can begin to, just with those pieces of information, I can begin to create a very approachable dietary program, a very approachable supplement program, not a list of 12 vitamins they need to take, but a list of 2 or 3 things that would have a significant impact. And then as I work with this client from appointment to appointment, and we begin to resolve the key issues that she was concerned about initially, we can start going deeper and we can start getting into individual areas that may be symptomatic. Now, if she was to come in, this is a left iris. So if she was to come in with recurring throat problems, we've got that right here. We can see that there's that tendency because of the gapping and because of the neuronal netting that we've got going on in here, and because of some other structural things we know, and the uric acid, we can tell that inherently she's predisposed to that. So what do we do about throat? Right? We're going to go back to diet. We're going to go back to how well does she digest her food. We're going to go back to what does she do to keep her throat healthy. If she's a smoker, we're going to get her to quit. If she's a vapor, we're going to get her to quit. If she drinks coffee, we're going to get her to quit, because there's a higher rate of throat cancers amongst people who do all of those things, right? So we're going to talk about those things. And we're going to talk about the importance of staying well hydrated, because that throat needs hydration. What is our best hydration? Good, pure water. Right. If we need to go into some herbs for mucous membranes, we might want to recommend some slippery elm for her on a regular basis. We might even have her just take slippery elm powder, mix it with a bit of water and a drop of honey, and have her suck it down so it can coat and protect her throat while we are helping to build some strength and integrity there. The eyes show us what her potential is. We're not going to see the fiber structure or the colors change as we do the work, because this is about her genetics. We're not changing her genes, we're changing her function within her structural ability. So when we understand, Gerald is saying slippery elm porridge is good stuff. Yeah, right? And Jack is saying good points. Absolutely. When we understand iridology in this way, we can actually do a basic assessment from 2 feet away. Right? Because you can see eye color, you can often see eye structure. That's your basic assessment right there that gives you everything you need to get started. And doing it this way helps us to avoid overwhelming our clients. It helps us to keep our appointments on time. And it means that we don't need to be spending time outside of our appointments writing lengthy reports for our clients, because we all know we don't get paid for that time, right? And so this also helps us to keep the questions we ask our clients targeted on what is important to them at this point in time. Shanna says, looking at people's eyes when chatting and making observations. Yeah, absolutely. So simple to do, right? Non-invasive, not threatening, easy. So with that, I'd like to just throw out this invitation. The next cohort of dynamic iridology will be starting on January 25th. Class time will be 5 o'clock Mountain Time. The class meets once a week for 20 weeks. If you've got a college level anatomy and physiology course under your belt, whether you did that through an anatomy program, or sorry, through a HERB program where you did anatomy as a separate course, or maybe through a nutrition program where anatomy was a separate course, or through massage training, or you're a registered nurse, whatever, if you've got that anatomy and you're thinking, oh, I could really use this, but I need to know more. I need to know more about the class, about the course. Please use this URL, schedule a time to chat with me, and my students and my grads who are on the call with us right now will tell you this is just a chat. I like to describe it as we get to have a virtual cup of tea. We are talking about your goals, the training you've already got, why you are looking at learning iridology, what you want to do with it. And we are also then, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oh my goodness. We are also from there then wondering, asking the question, is this a good fit for you? And if it is a good fit for you, and I agree that it's a good fit for you, that you're a good fit for the program, I will invite you to enroll. If it's not, if there's something missing, I will coach you and help you get to where enrolling could be a good idea. This is Julie Brooks. She's an RN and a CNHP. This is what she said about the course after she finished it. This is my first iridology course. However, in my certified natural health professional course, we were given a 3-hour lesson in iridology in a nutshell. That lecture and study material left me more confused than before I knew anything at all. Judith's dynamic iridology assessment system has been an incredible experience. And we're just halfway through. Oh, she wasn't even graduated when she wrote this. Halfway through. Her teaching materials are thorough and easy to follow. The charts are invaluable and so insightful. I left Western medicine a while ago in favor of natural health. I've been an RN for 22 years. Western medicine wasn't able to help me, but this is, and then at the last sentence, Judith is truly amazing and is my most favorite instructor out of all of my many years of higher education. Thank you. Jack is saying, highly recommend this course. Jack is one of my certified grads, as in she's certified with, through IPA, right? You do my course, I prepare you for certification, and then you certify with IPA. It's not me saying you're good enough. It's IPA saying you have met the requirements. And so that's an important distinction. There's a lot of teachers out there who do a course and then they certify you. You've jumped through their hoops. I prefer to let my students jump through the IPA hoops, and I walk you through it. I guide you through the process. Shanna says, it's a joy chatting with Judith, even if a person decides not to enroll in the course. Why wouldn't you? Just being able to talk with Judith is such an opportunity. Thank you, Shanna. That's so sweet. Thank you. So this is the only fully mentored online live course that teaches iridology and includes the mentoring to prepare you for the IPA certification and helps you to learn how to integrate this with your current practice. Most of the teachers that are out there teach iridology, and then when you're trying to set up using it in your business, they will say, you'll figure it out. Right. And that's not how I do this. The goal here is to teach you constitutional iridology and how to use it confidently so you can easily integrate what you already know about nutrition or herbology to confidently create doable client programs in your paid client sessions. Now, again, as I offer this invitation, I want to let you know that it sounds like January 25th is a long way away. You can delay doing this, no big rush. I only take 10 students. So maybe there's no big rush, maybe there is, but I only take 10 students in a group. And for anyone who registers before the end of November, who gets enrolled before the end of November, I have created a special payment plan that will allow you to spread the payments out over 7 months instead of the usual 5 months. So if finances are a little bit tight, or if you really like spreading things out over time, then you want to maybe book that call with me sooner rather than later, because that offer ends on November 30th, right? I can't make it be forever. And so just that invitation to you to book a call with me. Let's have a conversation, totally non-threatening. The purpose is for us to see if we can work together to make sure you've got the right background and to get you going with things, right? And so, yeah, if you want to learn more about the course, let's schedule a time to chat. And if not, that's fine. And thank you so much for being here. I loved all the interaction today. Well done. My students will tell you that I love questions. Liz says it's always great, have to jump off. Great, Liz. Hope to see you soon. And I hope everybody has an amazing day. And I look forward to having calls with some of you. And you are all so very welcome. Take good care and bye for now.